We're just okay, and we play some
Movies.
games. We're just okay.
Movie
games.
watchers.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Okay Movies. I'm your host, Biggie Size, and I'm joined by...
Hey, it's me, Gweedo.
Oh, hey, Guido. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, man, I'm doing all right. Can't complain. Things are going to be getting back to normalcy here, hopefully, right?
Oh, that's right, man. Everyone's getting their shots. I mean, it's kind of interesting watching everyone in the Discord. You know, it seems like quite a few people already have their first shots. And so it kind of, bodes well. It's kind of like a little sample that, maybe we'll get back there a little faster than we thought we would.
This is the end of the Outbreak movie where, it's kind of a montage and the music swells up and it shows people walking into vaccine centers and, eventually we'll see people celebrating in the streets and all that good stuff.
Oh, boy, I honestly cannot wait. I'm so ready just to get back to not thinking about things. And honestly, I'm back on a movie topic. I'm excited to get back into theaters. We've talked about this so much in the past. I've theaters are okay and all that. But I've been really kind of have a hankering to get back in and watch a good movie in the theater with a bunch of people, maybe just a few times. And then I'll probably get cynical about them again.
I'm ready. Let's go. I've been looking at showtimes. I'm double stuck and down to fuck, brother. I'm ready to get in that movie theater. Get all in it.
What is the movie, if you could pick let's see. Oh, okay. Let's go this way. A type of movie. Like it's coming out and it's going to be good. Just that type or that genre of film you would want to see first in theaters.
Oh, boy.
You're just craving right now.
Oh, it'd have to be either a horror movie, a fun horror movie that, everybody's kind of like nervous about. And they're going in and they're like, oh, I don't know about this. And then, jump scares happen and you hear, the girl 3 rows in front of you give out a little shriek and, that'd be great. Or, now this is a much harder house to sell here, but a comedy movie.
Okay.
Because they don't really make comedy movies anymore.
I think they're called superhero films now.
Ah, yes, action comedies. But man, a good comedy would be great. Just to hear a bunch of people having fun and laughing around you and having a nice experience. What about you?
I was going to say horror as well. And usually I'm not a fan of the genre, but I will say other than horror or big budget, either action or sci-fi films, horror is a lot of fun to watch in the theater. And I think you've talked about it before where it's like this feeling of everyone's nervous or everyone's at like different levels of that fear factor. And some are just finding the whole thing hilarious, which kind of lightens the mood for everyone else. And other people are like freaking out when something happens. And in that turn, it's kind of funny. It can kind of freak you out too. So it's like this weird mesh of attitudes towards the film that you don't really get anywhere else, at least not that lively.
I'm very much that guy that will be laughing during like a kill scene or something.
I can see that.
Hopefully I offer some sort of respite to the other moviegoers. Hopefully that's just not annoying and taking them out of it, but maybe there's one person there that's actually afraid and hears my laugh and it's like, oh, if that guy's having fun, then I should have fun.
And you got like you're right. And you're like, I could see you being on that like edge of the comedian. I wouldn't call him a comedian, but like, you've always got like a guy in the back row and he'll make like a comment of a girl about to do something stupid. And he'll be like, that bitch gonna be dead.
No, I'm not that guy.
I love that. It cracks me
up. You like that guy?
I love that guy. For a horror film, I love it.
I'll take it once or twice during a movie, but if it happens too often, then it's a bit much.
Sure. Yeah, it's got to be paced out. You can't do it every single time, but like when there's just enough of a lull, and everyone knows what's going to happen anyways, and you just hear it, it just takes you off guard, maybe scares you just a bit. God, good times, man. I think the Paranormal Activity movies were the ones that I actually welcomed that more because the films themselves were kind of boring.
Sure.
It was more the audience reactions what made it kind of fun.
Yeah. It's a lot of build up to watch a cabinet door open.
And that's it. Yeah, exactly. I felt like such a dumbass, like, because we watched the first. I didn't see the first one in theaters. We watched it like an hour or two before we saw the sequel, and I was like, oh boy, I don't know about this. Like, I've already set an hour and a half through this movie. Now I gotta go sit another hour and a half and actually pay for it to see basically the same thing again. And that was the case, but I will say in theater it was fun. Because I think there was a mix of people who were like actually terrified of it, and a lot of people who just knew the thing was kind of really hokey, so they kind of had to make their own fun, and appreciate that.
Sure.
But anyways, dude, it's been a while since we spoke again. It's kind of nice because we come to the table with so many movies. I know we're going to get the Oscars. But before that point, is there anything interesting you've watched that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, well, you and I sat down in a love seat yesterday.
Oh, nice and cozied up.
Yep, under a quilt with a bowl of popcorn. And we watched a movie that that was made.
That is very true.
And it came out right at the start of the pandemic. I remember seeing the trailer for it probably back in February of 2020 and thinking, oh man, that's going to be a stinker. Who's going to go see that? Well, the answer is no one, because there was a global pandemic. And poor Russell Crowe, because he really went method on this one and gained about $115 of extra poundage.
Yes,
to shoot this movie called Unhinged, which it was fun, but it not a good movie. But it was fun. We got to have fun, and the premise, the to my understanding, is Russell Crowe wakes up in the morning. He pours himself a nice black cup of coffee. He hops in his Ford F-150, and then he just starts going somewhere. Wherever he's going, who knows? But he's taking a little too long at a light, and a car behind him does something that we all know and we all hate. They just, within a millisecond of the light turning green, they just lay on the horn. And boy, oh boy, does that boil my blood. So I could really relate with Russell Crowe here. And he takes it upon himself. He says, you know what? This lady, she doesn't know what a bad day is. I know what a bad day is because I'm Russell Crowe and I weigh 348 pounds. Every day's a bad day for me. So I'm going to teach this lady a thing or two. I can't give her weight. So I'm going to do other things to her. Like torment her, chase her down with my big truck, and, wait for her to pump gas and then go and steal her phone and get all her contacts on her phone. And then see that she has a meeting with a therapist is what I would do. And I would go to that meeting instead of her because she's scared right now because I've been chasing her down. So I'd go to that meeting with the therapist. And then at a diner in front of dozens of witnesses, I'd murder him. I'd murder her therapist is what I would do. I would take a butter knife, I'd smash his head into the table, and I'd stab that butter knife into the back of his neck.
Please go on.
And then, you know what? I'd call the lady on a phone that I planted in her car. I'd call her and I'd say, look, I just killed the fuck out of your therapist and divorce lawyer. He was a multifaceted. I don't know why he had 2 job titles, but it doesn't matter anyways because he's fucking dead now. Tell you what, you get a choice who I'm going to murder next because you don't know what a bad day is. You don't know what a bad day is. You made my day bad by honking at me. So then I just continue on swath of destruction and murder anyone that's near and dear to her, as well as the people. I would murder the people that are near and dear to the people that are near and dear to her. So it'd just be a chain reaction of murder without any fear of consequence or really any kind of understanding as to why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. So yeah, that's it. I'd do that until the credits roll.
Yeah. You guys have all seen the movie now. That, shockingly enough, that is all the major scenes of that film, told exactly how they happened. This, watching it, and I think I said at the very end of the movie, it feels like a Rob Zombie movie. If anyone's ever seen The Devil's Rejects, which I definitely recommend, don't watch it with mom and dad or grandma. And make sure you're maybe not depressed while you watch it, because it's just going to make you angry. Because Rob Zombie likes to make 2 types of characters. The really, really bad characters who are evil and you just have a hard time getting behind them because they're so evil. And the truly idiotic characters that you can't get behind because they make the dumbest decisions you could possibly imagine. And you just kind of want to see them die. So you just feel frustrated through the whole thing because you can't get behind anyone. You want the idiot people to die because they're stupid, but you don't want the villain to really succeed because he's an asshole. And that's how this felt. The main protagonist, the mom or whatever she is just kind of a dumbass. And then you've got old, good God, poor Russell Crowe. You got Russell Crowe going around and just murdering everyone that she associates with just because he's pissed and he wants to take it out on someone. And this little lady is his mark.
Yeah, here's the thing. They set it up like this isn't, he did this, all the things that I mentioned, he just did it the day before. 12 hours earlier than the lady's laying on the horn at him. He's burning a family alive in their house. And you don't know why. That's how the movie starts, actually.
Yeah.
You witness Russell Crowe burn a family alive. And none of it's explained. No one's been like, you just know he's disgruntled. Everything that is about someone's life is bad for him. Like he mentions that she's going through a divorce. So he's like, oh, well, you're just like every other woman. I'm Russell Crowe and you're going to take all my money and your lawyer's going to bleed me dry and you're probably fucking him too, aren't you, baby? That's his motive. Like they don't explain anything. It's just, like they were at the pitch meeting and they said, what if we just make a bad guy? And they're like, yeah, sold. Okay. And one guy's like, wait, hold on. Why is he bad? Like, how did he become bad? That doesn't matter. We'll start the movie where he's burning a family alive. And then the rest of the movie, he'll just torment this lady and murder everyone that she loves. And the people were like, sold. Yeah, absolutely. We get Russell Crowe? And they're like, I don't know. He's only running about 280 right now. They're like, I got to pack out another 50 pounds.
You're completely right. The whole thing just, man. Okay, there's one scene that really, really got me. And it's when the whole thing kicks off with the horn, and then she goes to the gas station, like Gweedo said, and then he's parked behind her next time she looks out the door, and his truck is behind her car, so he's following her. Well, once they leave, well, a dude gets ran over, which is a pretty awesome scene. But once they leave, she realizes she doesn't have her phone anymore. At some point, when he found her at the gas station, he took her phone and swapped it with his shitty flip phone. Okay, that's interesting, but all right, well, completely plausible, I guess. But later in the film, they're like, how is he able to find us so easily? He took her tablet that even she didn't know where it was and taped it to the bottom of her seat and somehow assumed that the Find My iPhone thing was going, even though we don't see that anywhere until it's mentioned at that particular scene. Then we see him using it. He did all of that.
I remember seeing him use it like around the diner time.
Oh, did he?
He was using it earlier. You didn't know she had an iPad. I kind of just figured he was tracking his phone, like she mentioned.
See, that makes more sense. Yeah, like you would be like, okay, I'm going to, because I assume, okay, he got her phone because he's going to start going through all her contacts, find mom and dad, find, the kids, have pictures so he can go around and maybe even some addresses to go find people. But the whole like iPad thing, I found to be so like, would this like fat ass guy like just automatically like grab her phone and then immediately start looking for an iPad or something to use in that way? I just found to be very convenient for the plot, but still it serves its purpose. Like what Gweedo said, we're not worrying about how intelligent the guy is. We're not worried about his motivations for going on this killing spree. We just want to get to the killing spree and make sure, and we'll just kind of make sure things link up along the way, even if it makes no sense. It's just parts like that kind of threw me out and still reminded me of a Rob Zombie film because it's the same kind of idea. We're not so worried about how the story's going to link up at the end. We're really just interested in getting to the killing. Yeah. And I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. And really the movie's not, if you look at it as a slasher-esque kind of film, it's not bad. But it is, when you start trying to look at the story and try to get behind a character's motivations, that's where it really starts to fall apart.
It's non-existent, but where it tried to exceed, it did. And that's any time that he killed someone, especially the first time he killed someone, was a shock, because up until that point, you're not sure as the audience how far he's going to take it. Is he just going to chase her around and kind of like mess with her with her phone and stuff, and go to her kid's school and and call her up and say, I'm at the school now? Or is he going to go fucking ape shit and murder a person in front of dozens of witnesses? Well, we got the better of those two scenarios with him murdering everyone.
Yep. Everyone's on the table. And that's kind of awesome. That's that nice like chaos that you can't quite control. And that's kind of fun. You don't really get a lot of that in movies, especially even horror movies now. They're very centered around a story, which I appreciate, but it's kind of nice to have one of these just, chaos. I'm just going to start killing everything because I've got truly nothing to lose. And honestly, Russell Crowe is a fantastic actor, maybe one of the best actors in our lifetime. And he does that role really well. And thank God he does, because the scenes where he's actually having to move around are comical. It's like seeing this fat ass running around and you have no attachment to him. And it's hilarious. But man, when he starts talking, I start listening and start getting a little scared. And that's just good acting. But like when he walks into the diner, it looks like he had shit his pants.
It did.
It looked weird. And I was like, does he have a fat suit on? Like, I don't think so, because they would have to go through a lot of work to because his neck and everything looked perfect. Like he was what his weight is. And like, I don't think they put that much work behind it. I think he's just big. And they're like, if you want to get bigger, that's even better.
Actually, Biggie, here I have I managed to scrape through the movie, and I got the isolated audio of him walking into the diner and up to the table. Do you want me to play
Let's
it for
listen
you?
in. Yeah, let's listen.
Here it is. No, motherfucker. There it is.
Wow. That's exactly it.
Poor guy. It
I
can't
know.
be. This isn't method. His weight isn't method in this movie. He could have played this role fit. He could have played it at his gladiator weight, which he probably hasn't seen since, 1998.
After the filming of Gladiator, probably.
Yes.
I think he's just he's definitely a guy who doesn't really give two shits about anyone. Definitely a very bad boy-esque. I won't call him a bad boy. He just doesn't care. He knows he's talented, and he is. And I think he's just right now just, coasting. He did this for a paycheck, and honestly, he's
Still
better
brought
than
it.
everyone. Yeah, he's one of those actors like Colin Firth that, if he's lined up with other people who it's their first film or they're just a terrible actor, even him not trying, he's fantastic, and it shows. So it's hard to line him up with other people who are not in that ballpark and make it feel like it's a good film. But he did great. But I'd say check it out. If the premise that we talked about sounds okay, I did miss one part. They tried to blanket this whole thing with some social commentary that's a bit laughable. So the very beginning part that Gweedo talked about was he's pulled up in front of this house. He's popping pills. He looks distraught, and then he grabs a hammer and a gas can and goes to the house, beats both people to death, and burns the whole thing down. Then the opening part with all the credits and everything is all these news clippings of people are mad at each other. Oh, people are so angry. They're on their phones all the time. Oh, they're running into everyone. Oh my God, that chick just died because she was Instagramming. And that, honestly, that scene alone just like got me riled up and uncomfortable. And they kind of put in like little snippets of that same commentary throughout the film, especially I think it's even after the after the diner scene, you like hear on the radio or something, the chick's like, people nowadays don't know how to control their anger. Like, oh yeah, hey, good job, director. Really, really nailing that point in after he just murdered someone with a butter knife. So that's kind of hokey.
Yeah, it's also kind of neat in that it's a window into pre-COVID life. Like, that it was obviously made before COVID, and that is it's just a testament to like that's what we had to worry about. Is like people are getting pretty mad these days. There's a lot of people that are mad and inattentive drivers. So you should be afraid of those. Both of those, both sides of that spectrum. That's what we should fear the most these days. And you're kind of watching it now and you're like, ooh, man, I'd go back to those times.
Yeah. the simpler times. But check it out. It's honestly a fun movie. I think you said it was on Amazon Prime for free. If you've got Prime, go to Amazon.com, sign up for a free trial of Prime if you don't have it already. Check it out. It's honestly, it's worth a watch if you enjoy the type of movie we explain to you.
Yeah, maybe get your COVID vaccine, invite a few buds over and crack a few beers and watch Unhinged together.
Well, another movie we watched that's actually, I think right now this year is the top of the box office, which I guess isn't that impressive as it would have been about 2 years ago, but that is Godzilla versus Kong. I don't think we're going to have much to say about this movie other than it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect with a lot of money put behind it.
Yeah, Russell Crowe's had a great year. They first Unhinged and then they cast him as King Kong. It's really great for him.
Oh, that was a good tie-in. I like that.
Yeah, if you want to see two big beefy boys smack down in the heart of Hong Kong, then this movie's for you. If you want coherent and just somewhat engaging and interesting story, might not be for you.
Yeah, the story honestly is the worst part of the whole movie. Here's my problem, and Steven Spielberg got it right, kinda, just with the wrong movie, and that's War of the Worlds. You know, it came out, goodness gracious, early 2000s, and it had Tom Cruise and some little girl in it, and it was interesting because it didn't keep with the normal book. In the book, you're following this. I believe he's like a scientist, so it's got a lot of like him talking with scientists about, hey, how do we stop these aliens and all that stuff. Whereas in the movie, he's just a blue collar worker. He works on the docks, moving shit around, and you kind of follow his perspective, just an average Joe's perspective of this event happening, and that's really cool. I didn't feel like it worked well for the book because, in my opinion, I thought the most interesting part was the science behind it, because ultimately it ended up being science that stopped them. You know, you keep hearing this, you read the back of the book, it says this mysterious weapon that they find is what defeats the aliens. And, you know, in your mind, you're like, oh, they found like I don't know, some sort of like gun or particle that they're able to use to make this weapon. And it's really not. It was just a common cold. A virus killed them. They didn't have an immune system. And that's kind of cool. And that still happens, but it's like they explain it in an outro, and it's really lame. Where in the book, it was far more interesting because it's these smart scientists thought of everything they could, but didn't consider a virus could kill them. That's awesome. They should have gone the same concept as Godzilla versus Kong. Follow just a normal person.
It's been done, dude. It's been done.
But this is big budget. This is like money behind it for
that's
an American
basically
audience.
the Bryan Cranston Godzilla, you know?
Yeah, but that's just Godzilla.
We've seen these big monster movies, and we've seen it from every angle. And I was actually somewhat relieved just to have, like, up front, they were like, you know what? This movie's going to be big boys fighting. And, you know, buckle up. I would have actually liked less of that human element in this movie.
No, I agree. I think the less, the better. Because the whole movie is wrapped around them trying to get to the core of the earth to get some sort of power, whatever crap, to power. I guess we'll get into spoilers. Just skip this part if you want to hear this. But the power of Mecha Godzilla, which I guess is going to be their deterrent for Godzilla and Kong. And I don't need to see all that. I don't care. I mean, get Mecha Godzilla in the picture, but do we need to spend, you know, almost a third of the film, if not more, of this journey through the core to get there? Oh, here's the machine that's going to carry us. I don't give two shits about that.
I think that's fan service, though. Like, if you're not a fan of Godzilla stuff, that's canon for that kind of big kaiju monster universe. Is like, that's where they all came from.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought they just made this stuff up.
Yeah, there was, 12% of the audience that's watching this that has got big old boners because, they recognize what's going on. But, for all the other people, me and you, we just are confused as to why they're trying to get to the center of the earth and what even that is. And, why does any of this matter? They could have easily wrote in a different way to power up Mecha Godzilla that would have made way more sense and taken, half the time. Sure. But no, they decided to go the route of, incorporating this way of getting this old story out.
Yeah, and I get your point, and it's a great point. I guess for me, those moments, and granted, I'll go ahead and throw this disclaimer up. I did not see the Godzilla film or the Kong Skull Island film prior to watching this. And I believe a lot of those characters carry over.
Yeah, this is all the same universe. all kind of ties in.
Right. So, maybe that fault may just be on me for what I'm about to say. But I think that was my problem was I didn't care about the characters at all. I live or died. I really prefer they all died. That would have been way more interesting. But like their whole like love for King Kong and how they're all the girls and stuff just have boners for King Kong. And I just really don't care about them. I'd rather see him smash them. So I think that would have been more interesting for me is see more of a fear element of, all the people involved are just either having to solve a problem of maybe killing both of them or just something a little more simplistic than trying to find the most powerful thing in the universe using King Kong, going underwater, and going down some pipes to some secret world that not much kind of happens there. It's okay, I guess. It's just too much. Where I look at like, I guess the example I mentioned, but I also thought a lot about Pacific Rim. Probably the last big kaiju fighting movie we got here in the United States with a big budget. We got the early teaser scene, which is fantastic of the robot fighting the monster. And then you get a lot of story, which easily is the weakest part of the movie, but at least tries to get you involved with the human characters of understanding why they're doing what they're doing, their backstories, how they're involved with the program. So then when you finally get to the big showdown, you actually kind of care about what they're doing. They form this relationship and they're finally able to put their powers and their talents together to take down the big monsters. And I like that a lot. I just did not get that with this movie. And I feel like if I'm supposed to be following human characters and not just getting to see a ringside seat to monsters fighting, I better care about the characters or else it's just going to feel like, dead air until I get to the next fight. I don't know if that's fair or not.
No, it's fair, and that is what it felt like for me, at least. It was like, I agree with you. I didn't care about any of these. Like, it's so like eye-rollingly ridiculous the things that these people do, and just bringing your little deaf kid with you to go meet King Kong and having the girl from Stranger Things and the kid from Deadpool go meet up with a podcaster to like go run around a secret facility. Like, it doesn't, like, that's one thing I'm so tired of is kids saving the day in these movies.
Right.
And like, it just, I don't know. There's bigger things at stake, obviously, as you're staring at a 40-story tall lizard in front of you. Then I don't know. It was just so frustrating to watch Stranger Things girl dump a bottle of water on a computer, and then that's the end of Mechagodzilla. Like,
yeah.
There's so many all the human elements of this movie just didn't work and were stupid and boring. And it boiled down to like a football game. You're sitting, now I don't watch sports, but you sit down on a Sunday and you watch your team play in a football game. It's, you could be sitting there for 4 hours. But if you were to stop and start and record all of the actual playing of football, it'd be about 11 minutes. And that's what this movie could have done.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. And the fights, honestly, are fantastic. They did such a good job. They look great. They feel great. I wish this is one movie that I probably would have went and saw in theaters if it came out a little bit later, because I'm sure an IMAX with that nice like thump of the bass from those speakers would feel so satisfying. Just through my shitty headphones, I could kind of picture what it would be like with some nice speakers. Just really dope on a big ass screen. It would be so cool. But yeah, you're right. You're about like 11 minutes, maybe 30 minutes of actually interesting things, actual Godzilla versus Kong versus later Mechagodzilla. The rest of it is humans doing human things that really don't matter that much at the end.
Yeah.
And the movie kind of knows it, because after that last fight, it gets the fuck out pretty quick to the credits.
It does. It does.
Comically.
Yeah.
But go check it out. Shit. You know what? I'd even sign up for 1 free month of what's this shit called? HBO Prime, Showtime, something. HBO Max. That's it. Sign up for a free month for $15. Go to hbomax.com.
Okay. They know how to get HBO Max, Biggie. You don't have to walk them through it.
There's other good shit on there to watch as well. So it's definitely $15 worth. I just have to throw out one movie on my end that I finally got around to watching, and it's probably one of the most conflicting movies I've ever watched. Lots of thoughts going on through my head, kind of going between how fun it was and how kind of technically bad it was. But that's The Fifth Element. I really, really enjoyed it, but it's not a great movie. I gave it a really low rating, but I also marked on my little tracker thing that I really liked it. But I can't say it's a bad movie. It's just made some bad choices. Do you feel the same way?
That one's tough because I'm wearing those sweet rose tinted glasses of nostalgia with it.
Sure.
But that's kind of a testament to it also, because I feel like it was designed for 14-year-old me to like it. You know?
Definitely.
It's got some boobies in it. It's got some action and some crazy sci-fi and, funny characters that are slapstick wise, just, falling around all over the place and saying funny catchphrases. It just hits all the notes of what I loved in middle school, So if that movie came out today and I didn't have any knowledge of it, I'd probably be rolling my eyes at it, much like, Unhinged or Godzilla and King Kong.
Sure. No, I could definitely agree with that. No, it's a solid. Was it? Let me see what year it came out. 1997. I thought it was around mid 90s. Definitely feels like a mid 90s film, especially for sci-fi. But I gotta say, I technically I give it pretty low score. The pacing's kind of weird. Some of the dialogue is very cringe. And some of the plot elements are a little weird. But the film has so much fucking charm that it's delightful. And you just kind of get over all that. The world, although it's not the best looking sci-fi world compared to like a movie like Blade Runner or something like that, but it's just so much fun to be in. And Bruce Willis just works so well in those kinds of sci-fi films. And I watched another sci-fi film with him lately. He came out with Cosmic Sin. Don't watch that. It's god awful. I was kind of hoping for that same magic after watching Fifth Element, but no, it's bad. But no, Fifth Element is a really fun film that doesn't take itself way too seriously. And I recommend it if you're in for a nice fun sci-fi romp. Just don't go into it too serious. It would be my recommendation. But
there you go.
Anything else you want to talk about before we get into the meat of our discussion?
No, I mean, it feels like it's been meat already. We're sitting at 30 minutes already.
I know. We had a lot to talk about Unhinged, and really it deserved it, all of it. Well, we will now be talking about our Oscar films. At this point, we have seen all the Oscar movies. And hey, if you haven't seen them already, go ahead and just pause the podcast and go watch them real quick. As quick as you can, and then come back. Yeah, just real quick. All 7 movies? And I've got to say, they're all pretty good movies. We've had some years where it was a bit painful to get through, and this year is not too bad, in my opinion. Do you feel the same way?
No, there's about 3 of those movies that I did not enjoy. That were kind of a slog to get through. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fair. So we got a little different opinion on it, but that's all right. So just for your knowledge, listener, the films we're going to be talking about is, let's see here, Nomadland, The Father, Minari, Sound of Metal, Mank, Promising Young Woman, Trial of the Chicago 7, and Judas and the Black Messiah. Those are all up for Best Picture. And what we decided, we kind of go through both of our lists, and I'll have these lists posted below in the pod description just so you can follow along as well. You want to just go through our lists first, just to let them know?
Nah, let's kind of work up, I guess, and then we'll wrap it all up and give it the full treatment.
Sure.
I'd say just say a movie and we'll tell them where it falls on our list of 8.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, let's go with Judas and the Black Messiah.
Okay.
Gweedo, looks like you ranked that one pretty high at a 3.
I did. I enjoyed that movie. It told a story that I was familiar with. They taught us about, oh boy, now I'm really biting myself, putting my foot in my mouth here. Frank something, leader of the Black Panthers.
Here, I'll see if I can find that for you. Fred Hampton.
Anyways, I knew of his demise, but I didn't know anything about the story. And that's kind of what it is. It's like it more follows this informant for the FBI that is part of the Black Panthers, and follows him as he kind of infiltrates them in their current state, becomes friends with the leader, and ends up with the leader's demise at the end and his role in that demise. And it did a really good job of kind of weaving that story in and out, both the history lesson, the biopic kind of thing with the leader of the Black Panthers. What's his name, Biggie? Did you figure it out?
Fred Hampton.
Fred Hampton.
Oh, wait.
Not Frank.
Oh, or is that the deputy chairman of the national
leader?
Yeah.
So it does that biopic thing of kind of telling the story of Fred Hampton, but almost at a secondary view of the informants through the informant's eyes, who was just a kind of common street thug and gets pinched on stealing a car and becomes an informant. The FBI, I believe it was, tell him, look, you're going to go to jail unless you go into the Black Panthers and tell us everything that they're doing. And I thought it was neat how they wove those two stories together. And the guy that played the informant did a really good job. He really sold that feeling of like he really didn't want to be there, and he was always nervous and always afraid of what was going to happen if he was found out. And the guy that played Fred Hampton was awesome too. He was very convincing and charismatic. It was just an overall good movie. Not a feel-good movie, but a good movie.
Sure. I totally agree. You hit a really good point there. It was the best part of the movie, and just get the technicals out of the way. All the technical stuff with the movie is fantastic. Has good pacing. Camera work's really good. The acting, I think, from everyone involved is top notch. So it gets all the technical stuff done just right. But the interesting part of the story, like you had said, was you have this black gentleman who does get pinched and is being used as an informant because he would fit in really well. He knew some of the people who were already involved with the Black Panthers, so he kind of, weasel his way in and feed them information. But it's also fascinating in a hindsight kind of thing. The Black Panthers, although, people have different opinions on them, but no doubt they had an effect on for getting equality for African Americans. And that's fascinating. But you're following this character who's actively, arguably working against that. And that's kind of fascinating perspective. And in a way, kind of sad too, because, I guess you would argue he was kind of on the wrong side of history there. I'm sure there's an argument can be made against what I said, but, hear me out. but that is honestly very interesting, and it's also sad because it shows actual clips of him doing, I guess, exit interviews after his time with the role's done. It's the actual person who did this, and I believe it was after his main interview went out, he killed himself that night. Probably, I don't know, but I was just assuming that maybe because of what I'm saying here, he's going to be possibly viewed as a working for the enemy, which I guess he kind of did.
Oh no, they alluded to him poisoning Fred Hampton. That's why he didn't wake up when the police raided and ended up shooting him and killing him.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's true.
Yeah, he drugged him is what they alluded to. That was never admitted or proven, but it's definitely a theory and one that they pose in this movie. Although they do it in a way that you're not really sure if that's what happened or not.
Right. But I agree. It's a fantastic. Well, I hate to say fantastic. It's a very sad story, and a really solemn look at a very turbulent time period in that definitely shaped America. I would say for the better. But I placed it lower on my list. I think I put it. Let me double check my list here. I put it at 1, 2, 6. I put it 6 out of 8.
6 is nuts.
No, here's my problem. It's tough because as I said early, in my opinion, all the films I watched on here, on this list, I think deserve their spots for various reasons. Even the one I dislike the most, I feel like does deserve its spot because they all tried something different. Some had more success than others. My problem with Judas and the Black Messiah is it didn't take a lot of risks, unlike some of the ones that are higher up on my list. And although you get the technicals down right, and that's great, but if you're not willing to take some risks along the way, then I can't put you higher on my list. But you do deserve to be on that list as a nominee. And really, if any of these films won, except for one of them, I would be two of them really, I'd be sad if they won. But this one is not one of those. If it won, I'd be okay with it. Like, it's a good film. It does deserve a chance of winning. But I just can't put it higher up than that because other films told their stories in a more interesting and dynamic way. But still, that's no hate towards this movie. It's good. Highly recommend watching it.
Give it a shot. Great. It's on HBO Max.
Go to HBO.
Go to HBOMax.com. Use Just Okay Movies upon checkout. You get 20% off your HBO Max subscription for life. If you have any problems with that, you can email Biggie directly or send him a tweet, and just he'll get it all sorted out for you. He'll get you that money back.
I'll call up HBO. Got him on speed dial. We'll get the whole thing sorted. The next movie we watched is Trial of the Chicago 7. Now,
yes.
Let's see.
I believe we briefly talked about that before on a previous episode.
We have. So we won't spend much time there. I placed it really right under Judas and the Black Messiah, number 7.
Hey, I placed it right under Judas and the Black Messiah too.
Oh yeah, you did. Number 4.
At number 4.
Oh, number 4. So definitely a difference in opinion there, but that's fair. It's just same concept for me. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'm approaching these movies. I just didn't have it in me to like really dive in and kind of criticize them. It was more my initial feeling right as I finished watching it. Did I enjoy that? Was that, I won't say a good experience because these are all downers of movies because none of them made me feel good, but was it interesting? Did I feel anything with these stories? And that's kind of what I placed highest above anything else over technicality or maybe some flubs in the writing or pacing or like, did it make me feel something?
Sure.
And that's kind of where I'm judging it. I think you're just a little bit different. You're kind of really deep diving into all different aspects of these. You're not playing on the gut. You're playing on the brain.
I am, because honestly, I agree with you completely, Guido. And it's funny, you know, we've done this for about three years now. I think we skipped a year, and you know, it's funny how we kind of change seats sometimes. Like there's sometimes I follow just by my gut, and you've went technical, and we flip flop. You know, it just shows how it's so hard to be objective. You know, to put your subjectiveness aside when talking about these movies, because it kind of depends on how you're feeling when you're watching the movie. Right. You know, you may not feel the same way as someone else, so you're going to get a different opinion. And that's what makes this so much fun. And it's even harder when you're talking about movies that, I mean, compared to the normal film that comes out during the year, is far superior. Like it would win anytime against a Godzilla film or a James Bond film or what have you, as far as technical performances, all that stuff. So when you're putting all those films against each other, it starts getting hard. And you have to decide, which way do you want to go? Do you really want to deep dive into technical shit? Or do you just want to talk about how it made you feel? And I don't really think any way is wrong. It's just a different way of looking at it. And you're totally right. When it comes down to Chicago 7, my feelings are kind of similar to the Judas film. It's very typical film, you know, the with the pacing, how the story goes. You're not going to get any surprises. None of that's necessarily going to wow you. What's going to wow you is the performances and the content, and to see what that situation was like in that courtroom. A lot of stuff there was quite shocking and very much disturbing. Stuff I didn't know about, like when the gentleman gets basically hogtied and gagged, and like, oh my God, that's shocking that was could even happen in a United States courtroom, but it did.
And the way they kind of weave in the flashbacks of what was happening during the riot, it's, I don't want to say formulaic, although it kind of is. It has that Aaron Sorkin kind of tone to it, and it's very much just I don't know. It's like the people mover at Disney World, you know?
Yes.
You just get on, you go around in a circle, and you look at the things while you're going around, and then you get off. It's not fucking Space Mountain, okay?
That's well said. Yeah, it tells the story like it is. There's no major twists or turns. All the performances fit. There's some that stand out a little more than others, but I think everyone overall is really good at their role. It just doesn't take any risks. It tells the story like it is, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. I feel like both Judas and Chicago 7 really fit side by side with that. Although, getting down to the nitty gritty, Judas was better written and better executed. Sorkin's Chicago 7, it fumbles in parts. It kind of tries to be a little too oh man, what would even be the word? Like too stylish in parts with its pacing. Like it'll kind of want to speed up, kind of zip the camera around a little bit, kind of be a little cheeky with how it sets the scenes up. And it just doesn't, it kind of works. It just feels kind of weird. And if not, it feels a little cheap when it tries to do that.
Yeah. There's definitely moments in the dialogue that's very Sorkin-esque in that it's just like, the cadence of the dialogue is so, I don't know, predictable. Like they're just like a dabba dooba dabba dabba dee, and then someone else pipes in just like really fast and going back and forth. It just like the cadence is weird and almost preachy to one another. Like the characters are preaching at each other. It's I don't know.
Yes. I agree.
It gets exhausting at points.
It really does. It does. But still, it's definitely a movie I highly recommend watching. Not quite the best, but not a bad movie at all. All right. Let's keep this train moving. All right. We also watched Promising Young Woman, which I've got to say is the most surprising movie on this list. And it's the one that stands out the most. You know, we got movies about fathers and farmers and, you know, big time script writers from the 40s. And then we have a movie about a girl that likes to kind of honeypot guys by being drunk to go back home and then calls them out for being such dickholes. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting premise. Now, did it execute that premise well? I'm gonna say it didn't really do it for me.
Well, what's interesting is let's see, other than the last two we'll talk about, I think we were the next closest on these. I put it at number 5 and you put it at number 6.
Yes.
And so we may be pretty close in our feelings on this one. I agree with you. I gotta say I think the story itself is pretty neat, but the way it's executed,
I'll say this.
Maybe had some problems.
This movie, out of all 8 of them, is the one that I would say does not belong in the nominations. Even though there's on my list, I have 2 movies that are lower than it. But I could understand arguments being made for those 2. But this one, it's like, I watched this months ago before the nominations were announced. And I saw it pop up on a few lists of like, oh, this is a pretty good movie. You should watch this. You know, it's been a bad year for movies, but this one's all right. So, you know, I just on a whim watched it without knowing anything about it. And then I forgot about it because it's a forgettable movie and it's, you know, it's not great.
Sure.
So when I saw it mentioned as a Best Picture nomination, I was astounded. I was like, that one movie where that lady, you know, does things to guys, and I don't know. It at the time when I watched it, it was a fine movie. It was fine. Like, I watched it, I had a fun time, I guess, or it was okay, and then I just kind of forgot about it. So,
sure.
Yeah, I had a few issues with it just in general. Like, the tone would probably be the biggest one. Is like, it's a movie that doesn't know what it wants to be, whether it wants to be this, you know, dramatic story about a woman struggling with grief and taking out revenge on society, or kind of a detective movie where she's trying to figure out what's happening to her friend that killed herself. Or is it a comedy? You know, is it a dark comedy? Because there's a few points where it's kind of funny. Oh, no, it's not quite a dark comedy. It's actually a romance now, you know, and a heavy rom-com kind of romance at that. It just like skips these genres as it goes on. And maybe they're trying to make you feel like the lady is in the movie. There's arguments to be made that they're trying to have you feel the emotions of the lady that as the movie's going on, where 1 second she's falling in love and then the next second she's getting revenge on people and how grief-stricken she is. But it just didn't, at the time that I watched it, none of that shit lined up. It just felt like a schizophrenic movie in tone.
Sure. Oh, it's well said. And you're quite right. It's kind of hard to pin down what genre this movie sits in, because it does feel kind of silly. Like it's, well, silly, not like Biodome silly, but just in the context of the film itself, sometimes little moments show up that feel kind of funny. But it's also takes itself pretty seriously in what she's trying to accomplish. And I feel like the movie sits on a knife's edge, like some of the other films that we'll talk about. And it really, if the acting was worse, if the story was just a little bit worse, or even if the dialogue and stuff like that was a little bit worse, it'd fall over. But somehow it maintains that equilibrium, not enough to be like, oh man, it's just, even if they made this one mistake, it'd still be great. If it made any slight mistake anymore, it could be a very bad movie. So it just barely rides that line. But it also takes enough chances in kind of what you alluded to, that it's kind of doing these different things. They all do tie together with what she's trying to accomplish. But it can feel a little disjointed, but it still keeps itself together until the end. And I thought, she was, I can't necessarily say likable, but I at least understood what she was trying or wanting to do. And even though I disagree with maybe the way she was doing it, could understand why she was doing it. And that was interesting. And it's an interesting kind of perspective I've never quite seen before. I didn't even know if people actually did this, but I guess they do. And I thought it was kind of cool, in a more of a fun way, like how they were bringing in all these mostly B-list actors from all kinds of different stuff, like Adam Brody. I think he was the first one. And then the dude from Superbad, McLovin, and a bunch of other people as these basically kind of her marks to her bring them to their place. And she does the whole spiel of, I'm not really drunk. What are you going to do with me? I'm freaking you out now. It was kind of cool because you kind of got to see different types of guys, and maybe how even though they seem like they are pretty nice, they, it's only a couple steps where even really a truly all right guy could go down that path, whether it be, lust or a drug or alcohol or what have you. That's kind of interesting. But her overall plot, to get back to the people who took advantage of her friend, and which led to her, I think, her killing herself, was interesting. And maybe those like little subdivisions where she would go and do those marks kind of felt like they drug the film down just a little bit. But I guess that's just them trying to make their point along the way that this isn't okay to take advantage of someone, which hopefully we all know that. So yeah, I get your point, but it did it just well enough. And the ending was pretty interesting because you kind of felt like she kind of failed. She went too far in this lust for revenge, which I kind of like, which made me mad, but I kind of liked it. That it is possible that you go too far. You get too hungry to see retribution, that you lose sight and you kind of end up failing.
I didn't read it as her failing. I read it as her succeeding. Her intention was to die.
Yeah, I didn't. That's so interesting.
She fell in love with Bo Burnham, and right. That's what that whole montage was about, where they're in the pharmacy listening to Paris Hilton, and singing along with it, which was ridiculous. That was supposed to be that. No, it wasn't.
It was so cute. You liked La La Land. It was full of that
La La Land,
stuff.
I go into it knowing that that's what the movie. I don't have to sit through, Ryan Gosling tying up dudes and murdering them or something, or Emma Stone coming around and faking like she's drunk. And then an hour and 20 minutes into the movie, they burst into song. I don't have to deal with that. All right, you can't compare La La Land to this.
You can. It's a different take on a romance. This romance was sadly tied to her obsession, whereas in the flip side, their romance was tied to their obsession, which was like dancing and all that shit.
Don't compare those two. They're not. No, you can't. Shut up, Biggie. Shut up. Anyways, I get it. Like, that was the pinnacle of her joy. Like, she found someone, she shed her baggage of her friend dying. And then, one more little caveat, she gets a little video, and lo and behold, the person that she fell in love with, that she had those feelings with, was he recorded and was there when her friend was getting raped, I believe. And that made her world crash, and she gave up, and she said, well, I'm done with this life because any chance of happiness that I have is smashed to pieces. So I'm going to take everyone out with me as I go down. So I think she went into that cabin at the end with the sole intention of dying, and because she knew what these bad men were going to do. They were going to kill her in the end, and she would have the means to take them all down with one fell swoop.
Yeah, I definitely see that, but it seemed like such a shock when how she died, and even she didn't seem like she was prepared for it because there were so many moments where she could have done something to set that situation
She was
up.
prepared for it. Like that's the end of the movie.
But it was a backup plan. It felt like a backup plan, just in case it went wrong.
Plan, brother.
Are you? Because it looked like from the letter she was just like, in case I go missing, here's all this stuff. Like she knew if it messed up, she'd be dead, and she should send people up there to look for her body. Because she had the video already, that was enough to put a lot of those guys away, or at least
it wasn't.
Yeah, they were all on video to a woman. I think that would have been enough. It just seemed like she was there to just make him suffer. And I don't really know if she had any intention of actually wanting them to go to jail. I think she just wanted to, kind of hang that guillotine over them, saying that I can do this at any point. I can ruin your life. Maybe you won't go to jail, but you'll never get a job or never have a relationship. And
so
I'm just gonna,
you think her actual goal was to slice his dick off or slice him up when he was
possibly,
in that bed?
yeah. I think she probably wanted him to suffer, yeah, because he was the one who actually did it. So I think her intention was to really kind of have fun with him by taking out all of her anger out on him in various ways. Not saying if that's necessarily right or not, but I think that was her intention. But the fallback plan was the letter with the, if I go missing, have them go wherever that lawyer read. That was sent to her with the video and everything as a backup plan in case it went wrong. That's how I read it. So I kind of felt like it was a yes, she went too far, didn't go the plan, and she lost her life for it. But she knew that in the end, even dying, she would have them. And in fact, it would almost be worse because, as you said, now they got a criminal record for, hiding a dead body. I don't know. That's the way I took it, that sometimes your passion can lead you too far. And in her case, it did, but luckily she had a way around it to ensure that either way she won. But I could see the way you're saying as well. And I'm maybe going back and reading that letter a little closely. Maybe it would explain it more. Just from what I saw, it looked like it was more of a backup. But either way you want to look at that ending, I thought it was pretty interesting. Either way.
Yeah, it was an interesting ending, but not best picture quality.
No, not best picture. I think it deserves the nomination more than one particular film, or maybe two particular films on here. Once we get to the second one I was alluding to, I'll explain my feelings on that. But okay, very good. Well, let's go to a film that has been quite divisive among the Just Okay Gamers group, and that is Mank. Oh, Mank. So, Gweedo, you placed it dead last.
Yeah. Mank.
All right, man. Spill it for me.
I was bored out of my mind. And all the technical, all the fancy shots, all the, cool sound editing that they do couldn't bring me out of that boredom. Like, it was just a story I was not interested in. And we precursored watching it by watching Citizen Kane, like 2 nights before that. Just to be like, oh, well, I knew before I was going to watch Mank that I probably wasn't going to like it. So I've seen Citizen Kane before. We decided, a few of us in the Discord, to watch Citizen Kane because a few people haven't seen it, and it's widely regarded as one of the best movies ever made. Um, and it's fine, but Mank in itself, it told the story of the writer of Citizen Kane and how he kind of got the ideas for Citizen Kane, and his trials and tribulations going through writing the movie, all under the lens of this stylized look that was emulating Citizen Kane. And none of it delivered for me. It didn't make for an interesting movie. The dialogue and the writing just in general was very lackluster. And the characters weren't that interesting. I just zoned out for most of the movie. So if that's the bare minimum, you have to hold my attention. And if you can't do that, then you're going to be last place.
That's fair. So on the flip side for me, I don't know if I can say enough great things about the technical pieces of this movie. It is just so meticulously made on the technical side. It's gorgeous, well shot. The black and white is not, I feel like they really did a lot of work to make sure the scenes were lit to really emulate that, 1940s style of filming with the lighting, the sound, the music, the acting, how the dialogue goes back and forth, all of that just felt like a movie from that era that if you just put it there, other than the sound quality sounding quite a bit better just because of, new age technology, it would kind of fit in. I don't know if people at that time would be able to say, wow, this looks really good, but yeah, it looks like it was shot this year. They just maybe got a fancier camera and maybe some better sound equipment. It just was fantastic. And that truly takes a lot of work. You don't just throw a black and white filter on your camera and then go and start shooting. It looked like shit. You've got to worry a lot about lighting. It's a lot different. You could find out why that Mad Max and Justice League, two films that they're wanting to do black and white takes of those movies. Why it takes so long for them to release. It's not easy. So for them going that extra step is fantastic. The acting I felt was very, very good. Gary Oldman's incredible. Did such a good job. And it's funny because, I talked about the Fifth Element. He was the bad guy in that movie. And it's funny because he did a really good job in that movie too. Just a much different role. So it's weird saying, okay, those are two of the same people. It's wild. But I agree totally with Gweedo that ultimately I was kind of bored with the movie, and I have a hard time blaming the movie for that. I think it's just the subject matter was not interesting to me. Citizen Kane, fantastic film.
Who do you blame if you don't blame the movie? What do you blame?
I blame myself, honestly. This is one of the few times.
No, that's not your burden. It should be that movie's burden.
It kind of is, because I can't say, I can find a lot of things boring, but I can't say they're bad because they're boring. It may just be not for me. Like anime. I'm not a big fan of anime, but I can respect it if a storyline's really good. I mean, I'd have to sit down there and watch it and at least understand the context and then say, oh yeah, this is, objectively really bad. And I cannot say that for Mank. I did not find it interesting. And I think there are definitely some better ways they could have handled the pacing and material that make it more interesting for me. But I can also see someone who really, really enjoys maybe that era of Hollywood to grab this movie and watch it and maybe get a massive kick out of it. Getting to see this, this person who wrote, I believe, the greatest movie of all time. And the things he had to go through and the inspirations he saw along the way to make this movie. and just be encapsulated by it. Because there's no other than sitting down watching a documentary, you know, you're not going to get this kind of presentation of that story. It's just not for me. I don't particularly care about the writer. I don't particularly care about Orson Welles outside of Citizen Kane. So the whole thing around it just didn't seem like an interesting enough story to really captivate me. He went through some stuff. He had to deal with a major media mogul of the time and kind of go head to head with him for making it, but it just didn't grab me. But I felt like the material was handled in a fascinating, interesting, and caring way. It just wasn't for me. I don't know. I've never felt that way. Usually I'm able to kind of like key into a film, even if I'm not familiar with the source material, and I can genuinely say, this is really, really bad. I do not like it. But and maybe it's just the technical side of it. I appreciate it so much. And I can see the story that they told working for someone who maybe is more interested in that story than I am.
Yeah, I suppose if you can, you know, attach a worth of a movie to that sort of thing, then that would raise it up in your books. But you know, I'm here to watch a movie, and if I can't watch it, then it's not a good movie. That's kind of how I'm doing it. It's like what was that movie? God. 1 or 2 years ago, Roma.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, that was shot beautifully. The performances were great. Come on.
You want me to? No, I agree. I just didn't care for the story. You know,
right.
It's
boring.
I agree. Yeah, it was. It was quite boring. You know, it was about a maid lady getting pregnant and doing all kinds of things. I agree. The subject matter is boring.
Like a movie could be shot the most perfect way. It could appeal to you know, my next door neighbor who's really into watching Mexicanas kind of come to terms with their bodies and love, or whatever that movie was about. But that doesn't affect me at all. I don't give a fuck, dude. I don't give a fuck.
You certainly don't. And that is, you know what, Guido? That is okay. It is okay for you not to give a fuck about Mexicana films or Mank. You've got that right. Oh, you're welcome, dude. I didn't know if you knew that already, but
it's okay that you like this boring movie too.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. And I've got to say, you know, that was the one movie that Megan and I disagreed with the most. Megan and I watched all of these together. It was so much fun. But that was the one we disagreed with the most. She put it at the bottom, and I put this film on the bottom instead. We're getting to the heavy hitters. What I think generally considered to be the heavy hitters for this Oscar season. And we'll start with Nomadland.
Oh man. It suffered from the same kind of thing for me as Mank. It held my attention throughout the whole movie, so it's already got a one-up on Mank. But so Frances McDormand is her city gets kind of shut down, I guess, and her husband dies. So she decides to live in a van and kind of travel around the, you know, southwestern area, I believe. Picking up odd jobs and just living that life of solitude and travel, I suppose. Meeting this cast of characters along the way, and it's interesting. It's interesting enough, but it just doesn't do it for me. I don't know. Like, she's not a relatable character. I didn't lose my husband. I didn't lose my city. I can't and any time that someone reaches out to her and gives her a shred of like help, she turns away and says no. and out of almost stubbornness to live this life. And then it explores these characters, which I'm not sure if this is how they did it, but they seem like they're not actors. They seem like they're people that lived this life. Is that what happened?
I don't know, but I kind of felt the same.
It felt like
thing.
a series of interviews with people that lived this kind of lifestyle that were then they're like, man, this is like, we got enough footage, but also we kind of don't. So let's hire Frances McDormand to come in and kind of round this out into a narrative. Because
yes,
they shoot these I don't know, they're not interviews. It's basically Frances McDormand sitting with one of these nomad people who may or may not be actors. Honestly, you can't tell based on if they're getting awards for acting. Oh, heaven. It's just telling the story of this nomad life through this cast of characters that she meets along the way. And, they tack on little bits of her own story with them. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah. No,
it's not for me.
I agree, man. No, I feel the same way. Here's my problem with the movie. I feel like you had said, they maybe tried this documentary movie narrative hybrid, possibly, because the film feels a lot like Frances McDormand, so Nomad Lady, traveling around to these different spots, kind of having these interviews with people living there, living the same lifestyle, almost just they're just sitting in two chairs, and one lady's talking about how her husband died and she has money, but she just wanted to live this way. Another one's like, I'm just doing it because I need to find work around the country all the time, and I like the freedom. She comes along this kid, probably like 18, 20 years old, and he just kind of seems like a free spirit. He doesn't even have a car or a van or anything. He's just kind of going with the wherever the wind blows kind of thing, and has some family problems, and that's what kind of drove him to do it. And that's interesting. I think those people were the most interesting part of the film, because you kind of didn't know who was going to come by next. Who's it going to be next? And then a slight love story, very, very slight love story, which I kind of appreciated. It was kind of neat in its own odd way. But then the rest of the time, it's just kind of her shitting in her van and driving around and fixing repairs and kind of getting these awkward, weird arguments with her family for like 10 minutes. And or working at Amazon. I see the story that they're trying to tell. It just doesn't feel like like a full film, and like it was way too long. It would have been like a really solid, like 20-minute indie film, cut in a real interesting way, or maybe 30 minutes or so, not a feature length movie. It definitely technically was not very interesting. It was mainly camera, sitting on the side of the road, seeing the van go by. You got your establishing camera, and then your two close-up cameras to the people talking, camera by the fire, seeing people talk, camera of her in her van doing things, sleeping, what have you. Like nothing fancy at all. Very standard camera work. Yeah, the scenery's pretty, but that's because the scenery's pretty. They didn't do anything special other than maybe some color correction. It just, on a technical side, you can't really defend it, because there really wasn't that much there. You could have shot that whole movie with 3 cameras, and that's nothing for Hollywood. Probably do it with I don't know how much they spent on this movie. I don't know, but get you like, $80,000 worth of cameras, and you're probably good. I could replicate this movie.
Right.
That's just my problem with it, is I don't see anything special other than the message that some people are finding in it. Like I see some reviews of users who've watched it saying it's a poetry of the modern working woman. Like maybe
Oh.
I don't know. That's a bit of a stretch. I can see where you're going with that, but that wasn't, in my opinion, that wasn't the core of the movie. Her working wasn't really the core of the film.
No,
It was.
I felt it was more
symptom.
like her shedding capitalism and living with these people that kind of get away from the strong arm of just consumerism, everyday life kind of thing.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way as well. But it didn't really seem like she was even that super, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like she was just
Anti-establishment.
Exactly. Thank you. She wasn't so up in arms about it. It was just more of a, this is the way I can live my life. She was dealt a rough hand with losing her husband and losing her job and their home. That makes a lot of sense. And those parts were very interesting. But we just didn't get enough time, I guess, to grow with the character, and just having a camera on her all the time, sleeping and driving and talking with people is just not enough to really get a tied to a character when she walks into the home she lost. To me, that's just not enough.
Yeah.
It's pretty and it looks nice for a trailer, but it's just not enough to get, the kind of meat and potatoes of her character.
It was kind of like it was like it was a movie full of boomer angst.
Yes. Ooh, that's really well said. Ooh.
So these old people are tired of living under the iron fist of capitalism. So, and she is too. Maybe. You don't really know because that's not really clear. Because the whole movie, she's miserable. It seems like she's miserable. She doesn't like living this life. But then anytime anyone offers her, the tip of their pinky for support or help, that's not a nomad, like her family or the ex-nomad that she kind of had a weird relationship with, she's like, no, you don't understand the life I chose this life, so it's mine. You don't get to take it from me. That's what it is. Like, but then she leaves and she goes on her way and she's miserable again.
Yep. You're right. You are totally right. That's a great way of explaining this movie. And it's just, you get no back. I mean, other than hearing her backstory of her losing her job and her husband, that's all you get. You get no other kind of tied to that life. You don't even really get to see a moment when she's happy. There's nothing to like get you like, okay, really see her problem other than just being told that's why she's doing it. There's no way to sink your teeth into her story. And I just, it looks pretty. It's a neat looking film. Trailer looks fantastic. The whole movie looks like a trailer. I just don't. It's just not great.
Don't buy it.
Don't. That and that movie and Chicago 7 are my two movies that I would really be unhappy if they won. And I think Nomadland has an okay chance. It got the Golden Globe. And it's gotten the SAG Awards, BAFTA Awards. Like, it's gotten so much, and I just, that's where I disagree with Megan. I was like, Mank, I feel like deserves the award so much just on its technical prowess that people had to put in a lot of work to make that movie work. This movie did not, and it's fine. It doesn't mean it's bad. It just means even on a technical level, it's just far inferior, and let alone on the story level. But it just needed to be shorter. It's too long of a movie. Too much nothing happening, and you don't have enough of a character to allow those nothing moments to happen.
Mm-hmm. Real stinker.
Real stinker. Real disappointed, honestly. All the hype around it, real disappointed. What What a hack. All right. All right. Now we're getting to the fun ones. All right.
Let's
So the
speed
next
these up,
one.
brother. It's a fucking hour and a half.
I know. We'll get there, buddy. We're almost there. All right. So the next one, Minari. I actually put that movie at number 2. You put it at number 5.
Yes.
So Minari, we'll go very quickly because there's not a whole lot to say. I think it's one of those movies you kind of have to watch and experience. It's just about an Asian family in like the 1960s or something like that, moving to old Arkansas and getting a plot of land and wanting to, make their mark in the world. It's a mom and a dad and a son and a daughter, and the grandma eventually comes to help out. Mom and dad are not happy with each other because they were in California, I think. And mom is just
chickens.
Yep, sex and chickens. And she couldn't keep up. She's slow. She's too slow for Cali.
You gotta be fast if you want to get in the sex industry.
You gotta look at that cloaca and know if it's a boy or a girl. You gotta do it quick. So they moved to Arkansas, buy some land. They're still sex and chickens. You kind of think that's going to be a thing throughout the movie. I'll go ahead and tell you it's not, so we're not going to worry about it. But the core of the movie is the father trying to grow crops, make his own business. He wants to grow some I think it's Korean fruits and vegetables and sell it because there's a big migration of Koreans to United States. Makes sense. Interesting premise. And to me, it kind of feels like a storybook in a way, or a proverb, because he, there's other things he could sell and probably make far easier, like tomatoes and, all that kind of easy stuff that Americans usually eat. But he wants to grow this tough stuff that requires a lot more work to do. And it's kind of a way where he's maybe snubbing his nose at society, or maybe even at Americans, possibly. And in a way, some of his, what would you say, his decisions kind of lead to some of his downfalls, or at least issues he runs into. He doesn't want to pay to have a well put in, so he does it himself. Well, it dries up, and he's got to spend all their savings for their water bill, and all these other decisions he makes kind of backfire, and decisions he makes to even go out there. His wife is mad at him.
He's a fuck up.
He's an unlucky guy. But the story is told in such a, I gotta say, it's nothing crazy. Maybe I might be contradicting myself because I blame the other films as being too, plain or whatever, not taking any risks. And you could almost say that with this movie. But if the story and the acting, how they built the characters, all that was not as good as it was, then yeah, I would say the way the story is told would be very, very boring, if not awful. But it is, the acting and the dialogue and everything is so well done. You get very involved with the motivations of each character, including the kids, and especially the little boy and his relationship with the grandmother is very, very interesting, and how he kind of comes to her aid at the very end is very heartwarming. And kind of how the movie leaves itself is was kind of my problem. I put this movie at number 2 on my list, maybe what kept it from getting number 1, maybe. And it kind of cuts off very quickly, but it kind of shows a glimmer of hope after basically all the crops get burned down by grandma by accident. And grandma earlier in the film had planted some they call Minari, and apparently everybody eats it over in Korea. And it's growing like out in the woods somewhere, so they start picking it. So it kind of leaves to like, well, maybe they became successful. Maybe there was a huge market for Minari, and they were able to come back from basically the bottom. Or maybe they failed. I don't know. From the way their luck was going, I'm assuming they probably failed. But that was kind of a neat way of leaving the movie. What are your thoughts?
This one belongs in the middle of the pack for me. Because it's, I understand why it was nominated. and I don't think it should be taken away or anything. I get it. I completely get it. It was shot beautifully. The performances were great. Everything was done well, up to standards of the Academy. My issue with it and why it's number 5 and middle of the road is because it's a story that I've seen, and it's a story I've seen a lot. The schlub dad takes a risk with his family. The mom doesn't like that he's taking that risk, but she follows along anyway because she loves him. And, lo and behold, they get into some trials and tribulations. And when things look their worst, the power of family brings them closer. And it all turns out okay in the end because they had each other. It's a story everyone's seen a billion times. And it's like the production company just opened up that loot box and they got the Korean skin for this one, baby.
Okay. You are completely right. The story itself is not very unique. And I mean, even me explaining it's people on a farm growing stuff and going through tribulations, honestly, automatically sounds like a boring plot. It's just, there is something about how it was executed that was incredibly charming, very interesting. And I felt very, in my opinion, very true to life. I liked, because, I grew up around the South, and, the South has a bad reputation for racism, sadly. I don't believe that's 100% true. I know, shocker, true? Right? That's how it's perceived. And I mean, I grew up in a tiny, tiny town, like, 4,000 people. No doubt it's there, but I've been everywhere. And you look on TV, you see it everywhere. It's definitely not just the South. So my perspective is a little different. And that's one thing I liked about how the people around the church and everything were bringing in the Korean family. It wasn't, I was afraid it was going to be a whole, okay, they're Koreans. This is the 60s, 70s are going to be, made fun of and all that stuff. And, the one scene that we talked about was a little boy came up to the little Korean kid and asked him why his face was flat. I'm like, okay, here we go. But then it was just the little kids that I don't know why. And then they just became best friends. I'm like, oh, great. It's just something stupid a kid said. And that happens. And it felt real. And I'm like, that's kind of my perspective, or at least what I saw, when I was little. It was, but, not saying there's not racism. There most definitely is. But I like that little screenshot of that scene because it felt very real from what I've seen living around that area. I hope that makes sense. I just found it to be very interesting.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense.
But yeah. All right. Well, let's move to the 2 films that we actually both have very high up on our list. I guess we'll start with your number 1, which honestly, I'll go ahead and just explain. The Minari for me is number 2, and the one we're about to talk about, The Father, is number 3. And the 3 films I have in my top 3, I would be thrilled to see win. They're all great movies, and The Father is fantastic, in my opinion. Gweedo, what did you think?
Yeah, The Father definitely elicited the most feeling from me. It's it's a story about an old man who is struggling with dementia, and he has these horrible mood swings occasionally, and he kind of comes off as a curmudgeon that's going kind of nuts. And the movie does such a good job of putting you in that state of having dementia.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as as a jab or anything. I mean that sincerely. Like, you're watching it and you're like, what the fuck's going on? Where am I? Who am I? Who is this guy? And it makes you feel all these feelings. It makes you feel like you're going through the same shit that Anthony Hopkins is going through, the old man. And it delivers so much on that. that alone is the strongest like feeling that I got out of all of these movies, of just like putting myself in the shoes of this old man. And it tells a pretty good story about him. And it's fractured. It's a fractured story because his mind is fractured. So you're not really sure. It's not linear. It's definitely not linear.
Yeah.
But it does have a starting point and it does have an end. And in between there, everything's kind of mashed together, much like his brain. And it illustrates that so well. And at the end, you're just, you're so shattered and sad. And then you see him kind of brighten up because he's forgotten. He doesn't remember. And it's all starting again. And it's just such a touching movie. It's not good. It's not happy. But man, just the feelings that it makes you, that it elicits from itself, it's so powerful in that sense.
I agree. And honestly, I don't know if there's much more I can add. I feel the same way. It is, you feel confused and even angry at times with what's going on in the story. And I think that explains the state of mind of our main character and getting the audience into that state of mind as well. That you're confused about what's going on. You're noticing different details and different situations are happening in odd ways and at different time points and kind of overlapping and then going in almost like a circular motion, and you're just confused. But it's done in such an interesting way that you just can't look away. Like you've got to see how this thing's going to end. And the ending is, I mean, it's so sad and satisfying in its own way. Maybe almost melancholy. Maybe you could say that.
Yeah.
In a way, I guess. It's fascinating. It's so hard to talk about because even I have a hard time like thinking back on how exactly everything played out. But it's just highly recommended. The acting is fantastic. Easily, Hannibal Lecter. Well, what's the actor's name?
Anthony Hopkins.
Thank you. Fantastic job. He did so good. And the lady who plays Queen Elizabeth, she did a really good job too. As the sister. So Gweedo said it perfectly. Go watch.
It's film. Definitely theater come to film. Like while watching it, I could almost, imagine them doing the set changes as he's going through these delusional breaks, as he's, thinking he's in one flat, but he's actually in another. And then he's in a hospital. It's 100% theater, and it's translated onto film so well. It's such a good movie. I hope it wins. I don't think it's gonna.
Yeah, I feel the same way, man. I would love to see it win as well, but I don't think it's. Who knows? It could, and it would deserve it. Which brings up our final film, and it's that one. The Father is Guido's top pick. My top pick is Sound of Metal, a film that, floored me in many ways. Just absolutely enjoyed it. The premise itself is not too crazy, especially compared to The Father, but it's just a story that was well paced, very interesting subject. Not necessarily a unique story, but has an interesting aspect that makes this story fascinating. Really solid acting across the board, especially considering everyone's pretty much a no-name. They all did a really good job together. Man. So the film is about I think they're a metal band, a metal drummer, and he starts losing his hearing. Young guy, probably like 24, 25 years old, doesn't have hardly anything to his name other than a van that they tour around in, and he's with his girlfriend. He loses his hearing, goes pretty much completely deaf, and he's also a drug addict. So he goes into a really small rehab home with a bunch of other people who are facing the same issues. They're deaf and also drug addicts, and he just hates it. It's tough, and he's wanting to save up money to get I think they're called cochlea implants.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, thank you. Because he thinks that's going to restore his hearing to 100%. So he's just kind of going through the motions. He really doesn't, and that's one thing I thought pretty cool about his character. He really does not want to fall back into drugs, and that's probably the one thing that's keeping him there more so than being deaf. But through his time there, the counselor is having him go through some exercises that helped him and the other people there, and he's struggling through it. And I think that's one thing I found so cool was those moments of struggle he had felt very real and not like, oh, act mad, just act mad. He actually felt angry and kind of looked like how I felt frustrated at times. So it just felt very real, very subtle, and just really well done. But the best part of the movie, or when it gets really, really good, is when he actually gets the implants, and he quickly, and it's so painful. He has to sell his van, and I forget if he had to do some other things, but he learns sign language and really starts getting good with that, and honestly seems very, very happy. But he really wants to get back into music and kind of reestablish things with his girlfriend, just as if picking back up where he left off. So once he gets the implants, he realizes quickly that it's not the same, and the movie does such a good job getting you kind of in his head, like where he's at the time. So the movie starts, hearing everything just fine, and it starts getting a little softer when you're going to his perspective. And then it goes to just, you can't hear anything. And you go to these moments of just almost silence, with just kind of sounds. And it's freaky.
If this movie doesn't get some sort of award for sound design, then that's a travesty.
It is, because it didn't do it, because you could, it would almost sound kind of cheesy the way I would explain, like it went through those moments. And, just on paper, it probably sounds kind of cheesy, but it's done so well. So then when he actually gets the cochlear implants, it starts channeling those sounds. And oh my goodness. And I can attest, because I had a Uber driver one time who had one, and he must have had something going on with it, but I could hear the sounds coming out of it, and it sounded exactly like in the movie. Just absolute chaos. Like, I just don't see how you could operate, let alone try to do something with music. But it's just all these sounds amplified and distorted and cutting out constantly. And he quickly realizes that, oh my God, this is not the same. He just spent everything he had to do this. He's got nothing left. And he tries to reconnect with his girlfriend, and it's just not the same. He realizes you can't just pick back up where you left off. And I think the coolest moments at the end, where he's just sitting out on a park bench and he's hearing all of this chaos around him. He's seeing situations that, hearing them and seeing them, are painting a different picture than what's actually happening. I think there's a point where these two little boys are like playing around with a skateboard, and it almost seems confrontational. And some other stuff going on. And then he just decides to unplug it, and the film just goes quiet for about 2 minutes or until the credits roll. And he looks at everything again, and the situation's so much different. And he just feels more, he just seems like a sigh of relief that, he's accepted, that things can't be the same. He's not the same person he was when this started, and he's got to figure out life now. It's almost a new beginning of sorts. I saw that as, him finding that peace. I know his sponsor, the guy that helped him out, the counselor helped him out, and was like, the reason I put you in that room was so that you could experience that stillness, just peace. Right. And the whole time, up until the very end of the movie, he doesn't get that. There was a brief moment when he was in that room where he felt it, but at the end he accepts it, and that's a good thing. And it was, it was a powerful moment. And that one scene where he comes back and he comes back to the compound, and he's got the cochlear implants, and the
the counselor has to tell him that he's not welcome there anymore. It's such a heartbreaking scene, and it's so good and well performed. And it was just all around really pretty emotional movie. It made me feel things.
Yeah, I agree. That is a powerful moment, and honestly, it kind of taught me something. I never realized that there was a I hate to say the word rivalry, but something between people who are deaf and get the implants and those who decide not to go down that route. That there's kind of I can't find the right word, a tiff or a disagreement between that. And I guess I could see it. It's definitely a more than a lifestyle. I mean, it truly is a way you have to live. And going with sound is definitely going to have some differences than someone who doesn't have that ability. And I did find that be fascinating because I got a little angry. I'm like, this guy, I mean, he's going through the same thing you're going. He got maybe an upgrade, quote unquote, but I can't really call it much of an upgrade, but he's wanting to accomplish something in his life. He wants to do music, and this is kind of something he needs. Why do you push him away, like that? And it was for someone like myself who's never been around or known anyone personally who was deaf or having to go through those struggles. So it was just a very foreign concept for me. But I found it to be very fascinating and very emotional on so many levels. And that just shows you grow the care about this, 25-year-old poor metal drummer who lost his hearing. Ultimately it doesn't sound like a awesome character, but you can tell the movie was written and paced and everything correctly to make you care about this guy. And that's really cool. I like that a lot. And I really don't think it's going to win. I honestly was just thrilled it got nominated. But I think our next topic will be what we think will actually win. Unless you got anything else to talk about with Sound of Metal.
No, I think we're good.
All right. Well, I am going to stick to my guns, and I'm saying Sound of Metal is going to win.
Do you really think Sound of Metal is going to win?
I have a feeling, that it's going to win. I went against my gut last time and didn't go with Green Book, and it ended up winning. So I'm going to stick with my gut this time and say this movie's going to win. I think it is the most balanced movie out of all the ones nominated, and doesn't have the best acting. It doesn't have necessarily the best story or camera work, but it has the perfect balance of all of it. And I think it has, in my opinion, it's going to win. I'm just going to say it's going to win.
Well, I think Minari's probably going to take it.
Sure. I think that's a safe bet too. Yeah.
I think it is a very safe movie, and kind of touches on things politically. And especially as the Academy's voting for them, the past couple weeks, the forefront of the news is what's going on with Asian communities. And, it's hard to leave that out of your mind when you're picking something like this. Sure. It's right there in front of you. You're surrounded by it. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy. I don't think anyone's like, we need to vote this to appease Asian communities. I think that it's just so in front of people that it becomes kind of this weird hive mind choice,
Of course.
The guilt kicks in.
Possibly. Yeah.
Possibly. I don't know what the reason. I'm sure some people would probably disagree with that whole sentiment. And I'm not sure I even believe it 100%, but you can't say that stuff doesn't influence people's decision on things like this. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, the people who are voting are people too. And they have feelings and and society really can help dictate those feelings on what we choose and stuff. And I think that's totally not out of the question. Unlike any other choice, they could pick the movie. Maybe they just really like vans, so they choose Nomadland. Yeah, who knows? It could be any reason, but
it's also a very all around good movie. Like it's an easy pick. No one will get mad.
Yes. No, they won't. And it'll deserve it. It's a solid movie. So I agree. No one will be like, ooh, that little film just, somehow won because of politics or whatever. I agree. I don't think that'll be the case. I think people will be pretty happy with that win.
The only thing that I could see it holding it back from winning is just that Parasite won last year. And, when people are filling out those ballots, are they like, oh, is a part of them like, oh, another Korean movie?
Right. And I don't, I feel so bad. I still haven't watched Parasite. But just from what I know of it, it sounds like a far more interesting and challenging film.
Much better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But so, Minari is just a safe, all around good pick. But man, Nomadland and Mank, I'm afraid that one of them is gonna get it.
It's man. I feel you, and I mean, I don't. Ultimately, I just neither of them truly deserve it. Nomadland especially doesn't deserve it. It's just not. I don't see it. I don't see the appeal other than it's probably the most indie film on the list, and kind of, for my opinion, an indie film for the wrong reasons. It's a small subject, but it's stretched out far too long. To get that, whatever was that 90 minutes or 120-minute runtime.
That was like 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Is it really that long?
I think so.
I guess that makes sense. Megan and I had to pause it halfway to go to bed. That's the only movie we paused in this whole list, was that movie to like, we'll pick it up tomorrow. Maybe it'll be better. Like, no, not really. It was about the same, but yeah, I agree with you.
You want to place a little bet?
Yeah, I'd be down with that. What you got in mind?
Well, I say we put up $10 on each other.
Okay.
If Sound of Metal gets it, I give you 10. If Minari gets it, you give me 10.
Okay. I think I stand a better chance than I did with my wrestling bets.
Yeah, I think so. You're a little bit more informed than the wrestling bets.
Don't ever do a wrestling bet with Gweedo. You might as well just give your money away and just say, I trust you. You're going to win. Well, very good, man. Well, hey, if you want to share your thoughts on these films or any other films we've talked about, shoot us an email at justokmovies@gmail.com. Also, feel free to tweet to us. Ooh, we've been podding too long. I'm already mixing up my words.
Retake it.
Here we go. And hey, if you want to send us a tweet about a film you want to talk about, tweet at us at justokmovies. That's just going to have to work. I can't do it again.
That's good enough.
All right, very good. Well, we're going to get a quick voicemail in because friend of yes.
Oh my God, Biggie, you were wrapping it up. You had your out. We could have saved it for next time. It's just Mountain Sage.
It's a quick one. We got it. I put a call out and he answered the call, so I cannot leave my boy hanging. Here it is.
Oh, hi there. It's a Mountain Sage. I just got home and now I'm laying in bed. I don't watch too many movies anymore because, I kind of know what I like at this point. Are there any types of movies or tropes that you see in like a trailer for a movie that just turns you off to it immediately? That's it. Bye. I love you.
Love you too, buddy. And that's a really good question. Gweedo, you have any thoughts?
I said it earlier, but I'm getting real tired of kids fucking coming in and saving the day, man. Getting real tired of it. All right. They're dumb idiot kids. They don't have the tool set to fix the world. All right.
That's fair.
But yeah, so like the new Ghostbusters is it scares me. That's a franchise that I love. And you know, the one that worked best was middle-aged white men. Surprise, surprise.
Oh, Jesus. Well,
so
yep.
so we're going to throw kids in it. We did women. That one worked out real well. So let's try kids this time. You know, kids can be Ghostbusters too. It's just, come on. Come on. I'm done. Stranger Things sucks.
Yeah, the one season was good. And after that second season trailer, like, nope, I'm good. I don't want to live through this again. Yeah, I kind of agree with the kid thing, although I've got to disagree with the Ghostbusters one. I think it actually looks pretty good. Like the trailer looked stylish. I love the shots. I love how it feels a little bit smaller in scope, and it is going to hinge on the acting of the kids. And I'm hoping they're not too out there, you know, or it has too many moments where, you know, like in the kids' movies where they do something, they look at the other kid and they're like, "Whoa!" Like it's so lame, so over that kind of crap. Just do it better somehow.
It's not gonna be better. You can't. They're children. It's gonna suck. The last good children movie like that was Monster Squad.
Oh man, that's so good. I've still been meaning to watch that documentary that came out. I think it was last year about Monster Squad. I've been meaning to check that out because that's such a good movie. I've been sitting here thinking about trailers. To tell you the truth, I avoid trailers completely. Like I don't like them. They show too much. And even if it's a movie I'm not interested particularly in watching, I still don't watch the trailer because I might come around and view it, or maybe I look at the cover or some stills. I'm like, "Ooh, that looks kind of neat," or read the synopsis. Just trailers do too much for me. But in the same vein, I am getting really, really sick of these trailers inside of trailers. You know, where they're doing like a quick little trailer and then it goes to a screen of the title. It says, you know, Shazam theatrical trailer after showing like a bunch of quick scenes. Yeah. And then you got to watch the whole trailer again. Yeah.
It's like 7 seconds of like a heartbeat, like dun, 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 with like flashes of what's going to happen in the trailer.
Right. And then it shows the title. It's like, oh, now we watch the trailer. Like, why? Like, I clicked on it to watch the trailer. Why are you showing me a little trailer to pump me up for the trailer I'm going to watch in half a second? I don't get it. I really like, I'm assuming there's some market research, like people click on the trailer and then too often they click away from the trailer. What's the purpose? That's my thing.
I don't know what the purpose is, Biggie. There's someone that ran some sort of analytics and says that it's better.
Yeah, it has to be because it's mostly the bigger films I see do that, or at least, you know, supposed to have some sort of wide market appeal. Like I think the Tomb Raider movie reboot that they did had that, and it first time I saw it on that one and it annoyed me. I kept seeing it in like the Marvel movies and stuff. I don't get it. That just makes me mad, and that just gave me one more reason not to watch the trailers at all. So there's two different perspectives for you, Mountain Sage, and you know, call us back or tweet us if you've got one in particular. I'd love to hear it. Ooh, guys, what a show. 2 hours, over 2 hours right now. That is a lot of free content for you coming right at you in your ear holes. I think it was a pretty good show.
Yeah, it was very good. Good job, Biggie.
Hey, you too, buddy. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate your support. I know people usually message us in the movie channels and stuff about, ooh, can't wait to hear Gweedo and Biggie, you know, talk about this on the pod. And, you know, that always warms our hearts. And it's just very loving. And we were
always
pretty
cordial
that.
This episode.
Oh, I was?
No, we both were. We didn't.
Oh,
That we didn't give them what they wanted. They want to hear us argue.
These films are just too high class, man. We gotta watch a real piece of shit, and then me try to talk about how awesome it is, and then being the 99% of everyone else who's right about not liking it. That's what we got to find.
Yeah, we'll find it.
We
Next
will.
time.
I'm sure we will. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. We will talk to y'all later.
Bye.